Okay, Christi Garner-Bragg, welcome to the couch next door.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for saying yes and chatting with me. And I'm happy to know you because you're going to be a really great resource, not only for me personally, I think, but I'm hoping listeners will lean into this conversation and, just be open because there's some
Yeah.
nuance to it. So I'm glad to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do we need to know Christi?
To know Christy. Oh, that's a loaded
Yeah.
question. To know Christy. Well, I am Christy and I'm a mom of five. I've been married 27 years. I don't know. I need to actually do the math on that. A long time
Yeah. Yeah.
and five kiddos. I'm an LMSW, working towards, are you an LPC?
I'm an LPC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of my, I think it's either 3 or
hmm
4,000 hours. It changes
Right.
in my brain all the time,
Yeah.
because it feels like it takes forever.
Forever. Yeah. Totally.
Towards my LCSW, I dabble in uh, things that I find I'm passionate about.
Mm.
I find myself dabbling in. So we have like an ongoing joke in my house that I have like five jobs. I really don't have five jobs. I think I have maybe three. Like I teach swimming for kids who've had adverse experiences in the water with,
Okay.
up here, it's a club called Lifetime.
hmm
Um, I do work in nonprofit space at a nonprofit called Louder Than Silence, which is actually based out of Austin.
hmm
Um, and so I dabble in work over there. And then I have private practice work that I do at Mindwell, therapy up here in Keller.
Okay. Well, you also do more than that. Like, I think I
Yeah,
may be
I'm
siding with your
mom.
family on that. You're a mom. Um,
Yeah.
you are a board member on Sacred
Oh,
Wilderness.
yes, I do. Yeah, I almost forgot that. Geez. Yeah, I am a board member for Sacred Wilderness, also known as, Bodies Behind the Bus,
hmm
where they're handling stories of religious trauma and spiritual abuse, and just kind of having different conversations about what it looks like for different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do work with them. I've done work with Spark, which is
hmm
a national organization, helping write a model policy for law enforcement to be able to kind of recognize the behaviors of stalking and be able to do something about it. Because oftentimes in our legal system, it is very much, unless it has occurred, the crime has occurred or whatever it might be, like you
Right.
can't do anything. And
Right.
so
Right.
that has come in handy multiple times, from working with teens to working with people who
hmm
are navigating divorce to working with,
Right. Yeah.
clients who are in abusive relationships.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you do EMDR in your practice as well,
And I do
right?
EMDR. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
love to blend. I'm I love EMDR, and that is my go-to of
Mm-hmm.
a modality. But I love to blend IFS, internal family systems, with it,
Yes. So good.
because I
Yeah.
find parts are always popping in there, whenever you're
Mm-hmm.
doing different targets.
Yeah.
And so, the clientele that I generally work with, is everything from people who have like, refugees who have come over from like war torn areas. And so I end up doing trauma therapy with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, think back more of like your 1980s, 1990s conflicts. And so they're just now
Mm.
dealing with
You're
the
right.
trauma that they endured, spiritual abuse. So it's a beautiful thing to do EMDR with, religious trauma,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
spiritual abuse. It's some pretty cool, targets in there. It's not like from, right, because in evangelicalism or in any kind of,
Mm-hmm.
church space, and I joke that I'm not in a purple district where I live, and so I have everything from like your Pentecostal to your
Sure.
Catholicism to
Yeah.
Mormon to,
Right.
Muslim, and so that perspective of it is very diverse. But there's some of those underlying, tenets, that you can see of spiritual abuse or religious trauma.
Right. Right.
That come into someone's faith practice and impact
Right.
them. But it is fun to do a target on the rapture.
Should we talk about that with that whole thing? I mean, at the time of recording, everybody thought they were going to be raptured last week, right?
Yeah.
Lordy mercy.
It was insane. And there were legit people who, I had one person that was just more concerned over, family members who were talking about it, and they had a real concern. And so it was interesting, to say, well, I will see you next week. So, and if we don't, then, we both know that, we were the chosen ones. So, so that was fun, but like legit targets around like parents blowing a shofar horn for their kids back. Like that's their memory of what they know about the rapture, and the parents saying, oh, you didn't get chosen. And, and so now as an adult, you're doing a target on how they're not chosen or they're not good enough is one of the big ones that I see. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Lots of trauma around the rapture. We could do a whole podcast episode on that for sure.
100%.
Oh my God. It was just so interesting to me that there were, obviously people in the faith space is talking about it, but also a lot of people not in the faith space is talking about the rapture. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. People who are unfamiliar with it, and they're like, what is this?
What is happening?
About? Yeah. And
oh
so
my
if
gosh.
you didn't, and predominantly if you didn't grow up in an area, right, where like Tim LaHaye and people like that, left behind books.
Right.
In homeschool environment, I remember like that was the clean, books that you could push. You could read
that.
Kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I learned you went to college in Abilene. I went to college in Abilene. You are also a soccer mom. I'm a soccer mom. So we have a lot of overlapping parts of our life coming from similar spaces and backgrounds for sure.
Yeah. You'll definitely have to get, I have a soccer mom sweatshirt, and it's like in my soccer mom era.
Oh yes.
So cute. Yeah. And I'm like, I am, and I'm going to live it up, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know. I love it so much. I joke with my friends, like in that tiny little window of, I don't know, what is it? Like maybe December, January, February. Yeah. Now we usually have tournaments now, but I just have a little bit of a sinking spell because I'm like, what am I going to do? We don't have practice. We don't have games. What am I going to do?
They play high school.
That's
ball.
True. Now my 14-year-old will be playing high school during that time. You're right. Yes. That's what I'll be doing.
So that will kick off, and you'll be like, this is great. We go.
This is great. This is all year long.
Whatever, into high school ball, and if we thankfully have a great coach where he's like, hey, during high school season, we're not going to have them come in. We're not going to be practicing for November.
Yeah, they do that with our club too.
December, January, ish. And I'm like, thank you, because we were a part of another team that they did, and I was like, this is what leads to injury and maybe not loving the sport. I don't know.
Right, exactly. So. I know that, and that's always that's kind of my priority. If they want to keep playing, I want to protect that it's fun for them. Right. I don't want it to not be fun. Yeah.
I do not need a dude coach. There's female coaches that might do it too, but I don't need a dude coach that's like his identity is in whether or not, a bunch of little kids perform on the field.
Right. Yeah.
Be a negative.
Yeah. My kids are not going to be identified just by soccer. I don't want them to be. There's so many, going back to parts work, so many parts of them that make them a whole person. Yeah. 100%. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, Christi, what is your rant for today? I know you had several options to choose from. So what do you want to rant about today?
So let me think here. My rant.
Well,
now we know that I'm in perimenopause, because I was like, what was I ranting about?
What was it?
It's always, perimenopause is always thrown in there. So it is. So I've got 5 kids. I mentioned that. And so I've got 4 girls and a boy. So the boy is 10. And my oldest is 27. I always make a joke. She's a therapist. There's probably a reason why she became a therapist, right? If if all that's happening.
Love it.
But I don't remember with my old, so 27, 24, 19, 15, 10. So I don't
Hmm.
remember with my older two having, or even my older three, maybe a little bit with a third, but having just that, like, what is happening to me phase.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And we also didn't have language around perimenopause. I
Absolutely.
mean, there
Sure.
were maybe a
Yes.
little bit of things, but like I
Yeah.
never heard of it even as peri. Like I heard it as, well, when are you menopausal? And I'm like,
Right.
no, I'm not old,
Right.
So
Right. Yes.
and then two,
Yes.
like there's not the language around like, hey, it's just one day that you're actually menopausal, and it's the one
Yeah.
day after not having a cycle for a full year.
Hmm.
That's your one
Hmm.
day of
That's
menopause.
it. And then it's done.
Yeah, which I was
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
that's not real.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been interesting as the 14, well, okay, the 15-year-old. So as that one hit 14, because I'm 48, I think 49. I think I'm 49. I was born in 77. I'm almost 49.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm like, I don't know how old I am.
I know.
But
Well, once you hit a
statistically,
certain age, it's like, who cares? Like, I
well,
know I'm in my 40s.
100%. I was 46 for 2 years and I didn't realize it. So someone asked me, I was like, that must have been like a crappy year or something that I just totally
Yeah.
didn't age. And so then in order to honor the year that I missed of being 46, I was like, I will be 46 all year so that I can honor
There you go.
46 because I didn't get to do it. So now that's why I'm all like off on my
Yeah,
how
I
old
have
am
no
I?
idea. Right. Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
have no clue. But
Uh,
but yeah, so it's been really interesting to hit that phase, and I probably started it like now as I've researched because I'm a big old nerd, and so as I've gone back and looked at neuro stuff and just the brain fog and the
mm-hmm.
different things that I had found myself complaining about, like when I go back and look at journals, I'm like, oh, I was complaining about things at 44, um, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, and really there's probably a little bit of mood stuff before that. And so statistically, Caucasian women are going to hit menopause roughly around 51.
Mm-hmm.
African American women, they do a little bit earlier, around 49. Women of Asian descent, around 49ish. So it's been
Okay.
really interesting to
Interesting.
kind of
Yeah.
dive into
Yeah.
Hispanic women a little bit earlier. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like always curious, like what are the things that's causing, right, that earlier
Yeah.
interaction with it, when like the
Mm-hmm.
norm for little white girl here, the
Mm-hmm.
norm would be 51, 50,
Yeah.
51.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's my rant, is like
Mm-hmm.
we need more language around it. I think that that's happening, but I don't want the language from the people who are trying to jump on the bus for it, right? Like I don't like
Yeah.
to kind of hop on the train and they're just saying a whole bunch of stuff. Um, like I want the people who have actually been talking about it, and
Mm-hmm.
addressing it, and we're doing it before all of a sudden everyone's in perimenopause.
Yeah, like we're using it too loosely, right?
Yeah,
Let's use it appropriately, and
yeah,
define what that actually
yeah.
means so we know what's happening. So what did you find out with like the different ethnicities and hitting perimenopause at different times? What did you discover?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's environmental. I actually
Huh.
haven't discovered much because right, we're women, and
There's
so
probably
there's
not a
not a
lot of
lot of
research, right? Yeah.
we're like,
That's tracks.
why would we research them?
Yeah.
God, that
Yeah.
would be, silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it has been interesting to go through. One of the first things that I'll do with a client, if they're anywhere in their 40s,
Mm-hmm.
what is this, notice if you let me know if you have any of these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
When did your mom hit,
Yeah.
perimenopause or menopause, that kind of stuff. Because I think it's relevant, because what I do know that we see in perimenopause is like if someone navigated depression before, so like a mood disorder,
Mm-hmm.
like in and around their cycle, then their symptoms, that there is an increase in the severity of their depression.
Sure.
And
Right.
then if we see them, like if they were navigating anxiety before, like a diagnosed anxiety, generally it kind of stays pretty level. There can be
Mm-hmm.
some increases, but it's not like with depression.
Uh,
And so
mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff is fascinating to me,
Yeah,
from like
right.
frozen shoulder, um, you know, and then the
Mm-hmm.
twisted humor of like the universe to be like, hey, and you're going to have a teenager who's adolescent, who's going to go through puberty, and it's going to be great. And you're both going to
Well,
be
oh,
sassy,
right.
you know.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the rant around that piece, right? Like where you're dealing with what you're dealing with, and she's dealing with what she's dealing with. How does that look?
So I would really love our education system to actually tell our kids what's happening in their bodies, right?
Uh
Like, here's
huh.
some things you can expect during adolescence. I don't know if we'll see that in the great state of I was going to say the
Texas.
great state
Mm-hmm.
of Tejas, but in the great state of Texas. But I mean, it would be helpful, because when I have um, talked with her and even reflected back with my 19-year-old, which I think is when I
Mm-hmm.
initially noticed signs. I
Okay.
just wasn't
Right.
thinking about it because I also have a 10-year-old. So like
Yeah.
we were still
Yeah.
in the throes of baby,
Right.
or
Yeah.
like young toddlers. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like my brain probably just didn't even have time I just thought like I was airy, like kind of airheady and like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
forgetful and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh no, like my brain just wasn't, I was in a
Mm-hmm.
cloud. I was in the fog. But
Right.
yeah, so I really, my I don't know, big rant is like, I can't tell you how many times. First of all, I see it in my office where like a woman is in perimenopause age, so she's in her 40s and she's
Mm-hmm.
navigating life with what they would call a difficult teen, because the way
Mm-hmm.
we've even talked about, raising our kids, and especially if you're coming out from a faith background, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very much about respect, first time obedience,
Yes.
almost like
Right.
you are like the God in their life. If they can't obey you, then
Mm-hmm.
they can't obey God, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
we're not leaving any space for like nuance. This is normal for a teen to be doing this,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
Right.
part of their
Mm-hmm.
development, part of them, kind of cutting their own path.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I'd love to see more education around it. And
Yeah.
if that's, I would love to see it in our school system, because we don't mind educating on, some of the other cultural
Right.
components. I'm like, why
Right.
not?
Right.
But also too, that's one of the first things that I'll do if I've got a
Mm-hmm.
teen coming in, is I'll give the parent resources.
That's
Here
good.
are some
Yeah.
things that you can be listening to. It's all free. Here's some books I suggest, to kind of give you some more nuance towards your teen. Because
Mm-hmm.
I was a 90s kid, right? So like, it's scary when I reflect on me in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I got away with so much stuff. And, I can't even imagine, and my kids should know better. And then,
Huh.
what kids do is they help you realize, like, oh no, like this is a part of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
then some of it, like, yeah, you should know better, but also, um, you know, let's chat about it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you
and
can
some of
make
it is like
healthier decisions.
yeah, developmentally they're having to figure it out, right? Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're not providing that space for them, like my
Mm-hmm.
whole parenting concept, it probably doesn't come down to this, but in a lot of ways it does, is like, I've told my kids a million times two different things. If you're in trouble, as long as you tell me the truth, I can always have your back, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
something awful.
Right. Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Right.
I can always have your back, and I'm not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part of it, if I didn't lose it to brain fog, the other part of that was, okay, if yeah, let me find it. See, perimenopause in action, and maybe a dose of ADD.
Yeah, I know. It's super fun.
But it's that. Oh, and then majoring. Like, I want to make sure that I'm majoring on the majors and not the minors. So
Right.
like, I
Right.
actually want my home to be a place where they make mistakes and they're under the
Mm-hmm.
safety of our home to
100%.
make those
Yes.
mistakes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, like, a funny example would be, um, I won't say which kid, but we told him like, hey, don't ever sneak out, because like I get to sit in the data a lot, and I just don't want to like have to stress out about whatever you snuck out and
Mm-hmm.
then now you're murdered. And that might be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of like
Mm-hmm.
some of the, murder podcast stuff,
Yeah.
or working in some of
Right.
those spaces, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Oh,
just
yeah.
violence and harm that can come to people. And so I always tell them like, I know too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it also shouldn't make our home like a fortress, right? Or
Right.
shut down. So I remember saying to one of the kids, one of the girls, like, just don't ever, just tell us if you're going to sneak out.
Yeah. We'll pretend like we didn't see you. Yeah.
And they were like, what? And I was like, just tell me. I just, like, we need to know where you're at,
Right.
who you're with. Like, if you're going to sneak out, you feel that, whatever. Well, come to find out, if I say which summer, everybody will know. Well, everyone who listens that knows me will know as far as which kid it is. But so it was super funny. It was over the summer, and this particular kid decided, I'm going to sneak out with like my BFF, and we'll go grab Waterburger or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't catch it on the cameras. Like, we actually have cameras. And so I was like, how did I miss that? And I was like, oh, they went out the front window. Smart. Okay. And so I'm like,
good job.
putting the screen back on the window, because I noticed, like, when I drove by, I was like, why is that screen bent? And so I didn't say anything to them, because they're also a good kid,
Mm-hmm.
like, so I was
Right.
like, okay, I'm going to kind of like bide my time. And then I said something to them one day, and I was like, oh, like when you snuck out, and their face was just hilarious. And so I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, I mean, I just wanted to do it like that one time, because and here's what we did. And I was so scared the whole time. And I was like, well, just go out the front door next time, because when you go out your window, like, you bent the screen.
You bent the screen, man. Yeah.
I mean, so it's like, because they were truthful. So, and I pointed this out to him, like, because you're telling me the truth and you're not BSing me and giving me a whole bunch of, like, and it had been like a couple of months, I think it was like winter by then, or whatever, spring break or something, or springtime, when I like finally, like, when I said something.
Yeah.
I was like, but because you were honest, like, okay, you got to experience that, and next time just go out the front door, right? And let us know, because
right
just too much can happen. I mean, we're, it's just too much can happen.
Yes. Well, and working with teens, I think a lot of times it is the parents' reaction to it, right? Like, you just being like, yeah, just go out the front door. I mean, there's a mutual trust and respect between the two of you, that it's like, okay, all right, this is a reasonable request. I'll consider that next time.
That Google Nest camera will pick up on you
walking out. And then you'll know. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't have a camera pointed on that window. Yeah. And so I was laughing about it. Funny. And within like 2 weeks, we had a camera pointing on that.
Gotcha.
On that
oh, man.
Are you doing that because nope, not doing it because of you. Just feel like we should know it was in our yard.
It's a blind spot.
Yeah. We should be aware.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, you have 5 kids, so I mean, you've probably seen a lot of different things that have informed you along the way.
100%. If it had been, I'll tell you this, it wasn't the first one. And so they grew up in a more fundamental religious space. And so they wouldn't have ever even thought about questioning any of those things. So there is a little bit with like the bottom 3. It has been kind of interesting to see, like, oh, this is what normal is. And like, where they don't have a problem telling you, like, what's the word? Cybal? Have you heard that word?
No. What is that?
It's like a teen word. It's Cybal. It's like, oh gosh, am I going to mess up the meaning of it? But it's basically like, shut up. Right?
Okay.
But the teens say it. They're like, Cybal. And so, but it's got some like bad words in it. right. So it's an acronym for, it's kind of like the whatever, she's chopped and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because like the older ones will hear the 14-year-old be like, "Stop that girl." And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "I cannot believe you would let her say that."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, she's not actually saying it. Like, she's just
Again, I'd
like,
rather them say it here
yeah,
and be
exactly.
fine somewhere else and it not
Yeah,
be fine. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and that's interesting. And we may, I think it's so interesting. Like you said, your older two and your bottom three basically have grown up in very different households because
yes.
of the shift that you had in,
Mm-hmm.
your own, struggles of the spiritual abuse and religious
Yeah,
spaces, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Well, are you ready to jump in
yeah.
to
We can
this?
jump.
Okay, let's do it. I think this is a good segue. And so you mentioned Christy's part of the Bodies Behind the Bus podcast and
Mm-hmm.
being involved with Sacred Wilderness. And so I have just been eating up that podcast so much. Like, I was so grateful I found it. It's been so validating just to hear some of these stories. And I know that's really the whole
Right.
purpose behind it, is to create a space where people feel safe enough to share their stories and to inform people of this. And I think the thing that I've appreciated the most is hearing the work that people are doing behind,
Yeah.
the trauma and the abuse, because when we're talking about religious spaces, that is not something that's broadcasted for a lot of different reasons, and that's a trauma in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just to hear people feel safe enough to speak on it, and for Bodies Behind the Bus to be able to give that to the public so that people can hear that and feel validated has been, I don't know, I feel like it's so impactful. But when I think about that, I'm being a therapist, being in practice for about 15 years, seeing over the last few years how religious trauma and spiritual abuse are showing up in the therapy room. And not because it's just now happening, but it's just
Right.
now, it feels like people are talking about it more, whether they're feeling safe to talk about it, they're being educated about what that actually is. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But just to hear how people are having to process, just from childhood to adulthood, what that's looked like and how that transforms how they see themselves in the world, how they see their parents, how they see God. I mean, gosh, there's so many layers to it. And so that's why this conversation is so helpful, especially when we're talking about mental health, but especially when we're talking about just people out in the world and how they see themselves and see their faith. Because that is a hard transformation, and a hard jump to make when you're processing all of this. So I'm so grateful for Christy to come and really educate us on some of this and give the listeners just an idea. Because when I think about my listeners too, there are definitely some that fall in the faith space and some that don't. But it doesn't mean that they don't hear what's going on. Unfortunately, just about every week we're hearing about another, faith leader that's,
Yeah.
being arrested or being held accountable or, brought into the light from the darkness, whatever we want to say. And so it's out. Like, people know we're talking about it. And so that's what we're here talking about today. So why don't we start first with just give us a definition, right? Like, how do we define this idea of religious trauma, spiritual abuse? What are your words? Because language matters, right? And we both agree language matters. So give us some words, give us some language around this concept.
So what I like to use is the word harm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
spiritual harm.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's still
Yeah.
abuse, but
Sure. Sure.
oftentimes it's very hard for people to recognize something as abusive
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
they don't ever have the language for it. And so I will oftentimes use the word, what kind of spiritual harm have you experienced?
Mm-hmm.
Did you, we're different texts. So obviously it doesn't have to be Christianity. It could be,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
different text of spiritual guidance that is influencing people, and they can feel manipulated by it, or they can feel controlled by
Mm-hmm.
using religious authority in regards to it, scripture, God's name, whatever that faith practice is. And so I like to use the word harm because it's kind of like with domestic violence. We see people in IPV, intimate partner relationships that are violent. But what if you have someone who's just experiencing emotional abuse?
Yeah.
And it's very, very tactful and harmful towards that person. And so that's why, sometimes I'll be like, oh, like intimate harm, what kind of harm have you experienced? So I like the harm word.
Yeah.
Just because it's broader.
Right. Well, people probably can identify with that word more, which is what you're saying, right? Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, because no one wants to think that violence is being perpetrated, right? So against us. And we have a perspective, like, and I would say some of that is culturally, like we have a perspective of like, this is what violence is, right? So when you watch a show, you have, I don't know, like even in religious, religious harm, you can look at like the Moonies, right? That were out in California. It was a cult. Or back in the 70s, late 70s, 80s, there were these work camps that parents would send their kids to, and they would be in these different regions of the world. There's a great book. It's called Jesus Land. It's a memoir. The book title obviously stood out to me but they have like a point system, right? And so she's describing this point card system of like, you had to earn so many different points a day to get your privileges. Well, apparently that was like the going thing in the 80s, because I remember having a point card system when I was a kid. Okay. Where you earned your privileges at the end of the day. Whatever. Okay. And so, so it doesn't have to be in one particular space. I mean, we can look at some different cult-like behaviors or tendencies that we see in different spaces and see things that mirror cult-like behavior in religious spaces.
Okay, so when you so expand on that cult-like behavior. I mean, you mentioned like the manipulation, submitting to authority, a lot of times using scripture as a manipulative tool for those purposes. So when you're talking about cult-like behavior in those spaces, what are we looking at?
So I'm going to come from I came out of a Reformed Baptist space. So I came out of a Reformed Baptist space. Okay. And so that's what I know. And so, and, some dabbles of like evangelicalism, right? As far as being at a non-denominational church at one point. So that's the perspective I'm coming on when I answer this question. So in evangelical spaces, oftentimes it's financial abuse, right? So we have this idea of the tithe, right? That's talked about in the Old Testament. And then we see what you can see flesh out. And I know that's not related to cult-like, but just go with me here. But what we can see happen is, I remember hearing about a pastor who during a service told the congregation in the church to take out their checkbook and write a tithe check. And if they weren't, then they weren't trusting God. Yeah. And they weren't, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, I remember even early on when I came to faith in my 20s. And so coming to faith and thinking like anything bad that happened, like if the dishwasher broke or the washing machine wasn't working, well, we weren't faithful enough. Right. And it was because maybe we shorted our tithe because, I don't know, I was a stay-at-home mom and my husband's the only one that was working, and so it needed to actually go for our family. During that time. And so we can see financial abuse, which is, we see that, we see that in different aspects of cults, right? Like Jonestown, right? Everybody's selling everything. Their disability checks would go to Jonestown to be able to build this community. Right. And so we see their money going there. We see their time going there. There becomes, when you're investing in something, you defend it in a different way. Oh yeah, right, absolutely. And so now you're a part of that, and so you are wholly invested. Right. It's a way of brainwashing, right? Because you've put your money where it is, and so of course you're going to defend it. Of course you're going to be all in because you
put your money there. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, the financial component,
Mm-hmm.
the power differentials, just depending on what denomination you're in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that power and authority, okay, here is this person who has this role as like a pastor, which I would argue, I don't see very many people in bigger spaces actually pastoring. But like motivational speakers, right? Or,
Sure.
okay, they
Right.
handle the scriptures really well. And so then there becomes this like affinity for like this respect for this person who has impacted your
Yeah.
life, right? Because
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
start, whatever the faith practice is, there is a change that occurs.
Mm.
Whether that's, being met by, a God in heaven, or that's being met by, whatever this other, this the spiritual belief that means so much to you, that's profoundly impacted you.
Yeah.
You are willing to give up things for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we see that all the time with, like, I'll go with like churches, right? They have the little bumper sticker of like, this is the church I go to, and I'm going to put it on the back of my car. But you really shouldn't, because like when you drive bad,
I know.
you're
Yeah.
like
You're not a great example.
No. Do all the things. But, or the shirts, or we see, oh, you have to go here because this place changed my life. So it's not about this faith practice changed my life. It's this place, this group that they have, or this pastor, and, all those different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what changed your life. Not an actual relational, relational experience with a higher power.
Right. It's about what this place has done, has offered, has said.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Like less about the higher power, and it's more about the humanity of it all, which, to be honest, that's the part that ruins it, is the humanity of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I have this working theory, and that I've this is something that I when I'm working, because I have, in the area that I'm in, I have quite a few people who have navigated church abuse. And so it's been really interesting to look at their trauma histories before going into the spaces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's just
right.
more, think about the language that we see in those spaces, right? It's, well, and even what we hear from the pulpit, your family may have been like this and dysfunctional and all these things, but we are family here. So it's okay for us to be dysfunctional here because we all love, in this case, like Jesus. Right. And so he's making us new and all these things. But it is pretty interesting to see the language that's used around community, right? Because those are the things that we're made for. Community. We're made for belonging. Right. We're made for all this.
Yeah. And those are definite words that churches use.
Percent. Yeah. Yeah. But then what does your access look like when you are saying, hey, this actually isn't a healthy way to commune with one another because of these different abuses that are occurring? Right. And then that's met with resistance, or that's met with, well, my favorite is well, we've never had to do this before. Really? That's funny.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Right.
And so there's a lack of recognition in taking responsibility for even their failures in that. If that is indeed what it is, we've never had to do it before, so we're just we're totally blindsided. We don't know what we're doing. Well, one, that's kind of scary if what you're putting out to your church is different language. But then also two, call a professional then. Don't do it in-house, because that's also what we see so often in religious trauma and spiritual abuse is it's keeping it all contained and in-house. Right. And so you're not actually going out to the professionals who've worked in the spaces, who can see the different complexities of it, and help someone sort through it, and also report, the thing we saw recently up here in Dallas, where I think he got 6 months. The pastor
6
got
months.
6 months.
Yes. Yeah. And Yeah.
Yeah.
For
I
abusing
could
a
rant
12-year-old.
about that one too. Yeah, for abusing a 12-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
here are the things that I would hear after that occurred. Well, it was like the 70s, 80s. What? So that makes it okay? Like,
Right. It was
this
okay
is
to
a
do that in the 70s and the
grown
80s.
dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't ever remember that being like, that's cool. You know, like y'all should just be fine with it. Yeah. But then also too, in the legal system, the way things are formed. So when you navigate the legal system, right, and a crime's been committed, then it's like you can have there's all kinds of it's not a scale, but it's like different languages used. So I think his was, lewd acts with a child.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
okay. And I maybe ranted for a couple of days about if he had stolen like an Apple computer, he would have gotten more time than, harming and violating a child, because a child doesn't know the difference between penetration, right, that would increase that standard, the legal standard, and touch. It's all penetrating, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and going back to what you were saying, it's a lot of that too is, and when we were talking about domestic violence, if we put it through that lens, it's the power differential, right? It's the power control. And when you're a 12-year-old and this is, an older person, I mean, I don't know how old he was at the time, doesn't matter, but he was an adult.
21. He was an adult with a life.
Right. He was an adult with a life with a position of power, right? Because he's in this faith space. He, is being looked at as a leader in that space. And this is a 12-year-old girl. What is she going to say? What is she going to do? Yeah. Yeah, and going back to what language, she didn't have, like you said, no language. She has no language for this.
Yeah. Well, and statistically, if when, let's go with CSA, right? So childhood sexual abuse. When childhood sexual abuse occurs, if they do not report in the first 5 years, they will be in their 30s to 40s when they actually possibly start dealing with it.
Yeah.
Or when they start having children and their children hit the age in which they experienced harm.
The abuse. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Generally, and you have to think about the dynamics of that, right? Too. Like, what does their home environment look like if they're not saying something?
Right. Right.
And the home environment can be healthy. You can have a healthy home environment, but maybe the parents are all in on this church.
Sure.
Well, I don't want my parents to lose their church.
Right.
And their, and all their friends and whatever. I mean, kids they can conceptualize that.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and kids just naturally, they put it on themselves, right? Like, I mean, that responsibility. I can't say anything because mom and dad like this church or like this pastor or like this community group, whatever. I can't say anything because what is that going to mean for our entire family? And that is a huge piece of, when somebody's gone through harm like that, being worried about how the ripple effect that's going to have on a lot of people. Yeah. And it prevents them from saying something.
Well, and then if what we're seeing now, and that was in an evangelical space, more charismatic evangelical space, but we see that's occurring. That message was 100% heard loud and clear. As far as because the nonprofit that I do work with, Louder Than Silence, we see that all the time. Okay, at some point the question that we'll come up with is okay, well, why didn't you report? Well, why would I?
Yeah.
Right. If statistically, I remember searching this at some point. If statistically less than 1% of cases that go through the criminal system end in a guilty verdict, actual verdict, not a plea, because a lot of them get plea deals, and that's what he did with his. But if it ends with a plea, if it ends in a guilty verdict, it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
You can Google those stats in the state of Texas. That's in Texas.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah. Why would people report it? Why would I blow up my life, my family's life?
Yeah.
My friends, right? Everything and everyone I'm connected to. Why would I blow that up when nothing's really going to happen?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
then add on top of that, right? That layer of, okay, if you're in a religious space,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, so what's the language around purity culture? What's the language around, if you're a female, versus a male?
Male.
What's the
Yeah.
language that
Right.
you've heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
In and around those things. Because around men, I want to say the last time I checked, we're looking at a stat of like 1 in 6, potentially 1 in 5, because of the underreporting.
Wow.
Because to
Yeah.
experience harm as a
Yeah.
male says
Yeah.
a whole host of things, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
about a
I mean,
person, but like the language that they've heard, it
sure.
communicates
Yeah.
something to them. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, I mean, there's already shame, but then if it's, same gendered, is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they're like,
Same gender.
especially in a religious space, that makes it, yeah, even more of a risk of not reporting. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, and something that you put in this form that I want to mention is the abuse that people can experience for holding these institutions accountable, right? And even talking again, going back to language, if we take the institution out of the situation, they would say things like abuse, exploitation, whatever. But what they're doing is what did they say? Things like, was going against the church doctrine, or
Yeah.
like,
They committed a sin. Yeah. My favorite is a sin. They slipped. That's not just sexual harm. I mean, that is, emotional abuse,
yeah, right,
right? Because
right,
we have something called malignant narcissism, that I've done research on. And so, it's not just malignant narcissism, but like, in and around domestic violence, how those situations are handled within a church environment, and
yeah, oh yeah,
and the grounds for divorce and the
yeah,
grounds for divorce. I mean, there's that, these different things, it's like it crosses, faith, I guess, faith perspectives. So like, I could meet with someone who's from a Muslim background and they could talk to me about, how they view marriage, and like how difficult divorce is, and the process of when someone's wanting to seek a divorce, the steps that are handled, in the Muslim faith. And then I can see the same thing with someone who's Sikh. And then I can see the same thing from a fundamentalist Christian view, or it doesn't even have to be fundamentalist. It could be, I've heard it in evangelical spaces. I've heard it in reformed spaces. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but at the end of it, and I know men suffer under this as well. However, at the end of it, having an elder who, depending on what faith background you're in, having the elder be dismissive of the female's cries for help, is pretty, distorted.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not submitting. You're not playing the role that God's called you to. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What's
right.
the calling?
And so talk a little bit about the abuse that occurs after, we're holding these institutions accountable, because abuse happens, then we call out the abuse in whatever way the abuse is called out. But then there's the abuse is perpetuated for holding them accountable. So what does that look like?
So it amplifies. And here's what I mean by that. I always like to go back to, we critique our own, or that's kind of my mentality, right? I can't critique something I don't know. And so if I'm critiquing something, it's because I actually care about that space, whatever it is. And so I don't have a problem critiquing my own. And you could look at this from a politics perspective of what we saw in 2015, 2016, and those different shifts of like normalized behavior to, what we see now, and being kind of like, this isn't normal. This isn't what we should be seeing, right? You can do the same thing in the church space. So you have someone who reports, you think in your head, I'm going to let them know and they're going to do the right thing.
Right.
Which is
Yes.
their first mistake.
It's right. Yes. Oh, they just don't know. They just don't realize the impact
They're
this is having.
confused. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need to inform them. Oh my gosh, that's so relatable. I need to inform them so they can do better.
Yes.
Because if they
Yes.
know, then they'll do better.
Right.
So logical.
Right.
So logical.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, but it's the real, so you go into that thinking like, oh, okay, they're going to
make the change.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever little information, that the person has, they're going to let them know, and then they're going to make the change and they're going to address the issue. And then they're also going to, this is key, apologize to the person who's come forward with the complaint.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Gosh, we're so sorry. We failed, to have something in place or to protect you or whatever it might be. Right.
Right.
And so then that occurs. And then if you continue to push back on that, right? If you continue to push back on that and be like, because you won't get an apology ever, because for them, this is like a legal thing, right? If they admit any kind of responsibility, that's what they're afraid of. So they're no longer afraid of like hurting the value, worth, and dignity of a person, right? Who's bringing forward this valid complaint and saying, hey, this isn't okay. Now it becomes protect mode. And I don't know what it looks like in smaller churches. In the bigger churches, they do have PR people who run comms and communication and all that kind of stuff for them. So like what y'all experienced in Austin, what they've experienced up here in DFW. And so there's a team, and they do work. They do good work, by the way. Right. Because like, then what you're hearing from the pulpit is like, gosh, we're just as heartbroken people, and we're just as caught off guard and all the things. And so it's almost like there's this lull. It's like you're lulled into the belief of like, they're doing something.
Right.
And then whenever the person starts to say, hey, they're actually not doing anything, I don't notice a difference. And I'm still in immense suffering or whatever it might be. Well, then you start to be like, you become the problem.
Right.
And so my favorite is like scripture being sent to individuals, right? So they'll, it depends on like what process you're navigating. So like if you're navigating criminal, like let's say a criminal situation has occurred, right? And so a criminal event has occurred. And so you're navigating that criminal process. And so what I have seen over and over and over again is when a complaint is made, and say it actually does make it to trial. We've heard stories over and over, and I've actually witnessed it, where there are people in the congregation that are there supporting the perpetrator. Right. And then the person who brought the complaint, they're always being questioned as if they're not telling the full truth. Right. And we see that all the time in any kind of religious trauma, spiritual abuse. And so I kind of say like, you have this person's experience, and then you have the overarching truth. And you can't ever get at the overarching truth if this person over here is not able to recognize their responsibility or where their failures were, and vice versa, Right. But 9 times out of 10, what I find when people bring forward a complaint, so I'll use the term victim, or a victim or survivor brings forward a complaint, you're not seeing someone who wants to burn it all down.
No.
Like,
right.
If anything, they're more protective of the institution than the institution is, right? And so they will gaslight themselves.
By the time they tell somebody, the turmoil that has gone on for them internally. You're absolutely right. They are being protective of the institution first before themselves.
100%. Right. And then just depending on what that institution has meant to them. Right. Yeah. So if it was life-changing for them, I've got to protect this thing that changed my life. Like we don't always have the language to kind of flush that out and be able to recognize, yes, there were some good things that happened there, and this was not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to the brainwashing, the cult the manipulation, right? Because you're invested in this place. It was life changing, but holding space for those two things, right? Like it can be life changing and it can be abusive, and it was. And and you calling it out is what you need to do to prioritize yourself.
Well, and look at the like personality traits of, I'm not saying that it's all, leaders that have like this charisma or whatever, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean,
or just
it's
how
hard
they,
not to,
yeah. Like you can, I mean, I remember reflecting back on some different, sermons that I sat through and just being like, the pastor would be like, yeah, and if you don't like it, like, there's the door. And I'm like, oh, they're normalizing that behavior, right?
Yeah. Right.
You don't like something, you can go to there's the door. You can leave. But if you fostered all this community and all of this, like all of these things, right? Like if you did it the right way, did what you were supposed to do, while you were there, well then, my gosh, you're not only walking out the door, but you're also potentially walking away from all of that support.
Yes. Right. And I mean, that's the other thing is, you're right. If you do it the right way, quote unquote, the right way, you're not just walking away from the institution. You're walking away from your life. You're walking away from your friends, your support. Sometimes a faith that has anchored you, right, because of what's happened in this institution. I mean, there's so much loss around that. It's not as simple as just walking out the door. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Well, and then too, right? Like, what are all the tentacles in your family? So like in the education system, is it a church that has a ton of homeschoolers, or are there a ton of kids, at a particular charter school or Christian, faith-based school or whatever it might be? Well, then that's a whole nother area where it's like those, I call it all the different tentacles, that we don't think about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think that this conversation is more prevalent now? I mean, or do you think it is? And why do you think it is, if it is?
I'm 100%.
Okay.
Well, because of so this isn't a political statement. It's what we saw the rise of in 2015.
Yeah.
In 2016. Yeah. I totally think that it spreads into here, because what we're seeing is all the language that I say raised and indoctrinated my children with, because we were in a faith space. So all the things, the good and just the times where I was like, oh no, this is what it is, and so you don't question it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I did not teach them to hate their neighbor. I did not, right? Like at nowhere in that process was I teaching them how to view another. In fact, what was it? I can't remember. It was like the 410 window or the 40-60 window, right? Where we would send our kids off to mission trips. I mean, my kids went to Guatemala, they went to Ecuador, and would go every year to those mission trips, right? To like proselytize, they would say, oh, we were just giving people pizza and telling them about Jesus, but like they were proselytizing. And I think back on that now and I think, holy moly, like they were in middle school, like they just got like a really cool trip in high school, Okay, so to your question, we see this rise, right? And so I think the reason why we have to be talking about it is because what we're witnessing in regards to Christian nationalism is not Christian. It's far from it.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's an aspect of that that's been co-opted. And then also, so you've got that layer of it, because I think that is impacting everybody right? So like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. In, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, I would have just been like, this isn't okay, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So there's huge shift. To develop language around spiritual abuse and to be talking about it, it's because we are also seeing the weaponization of our churches.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, and it's just easy to pick on that right now because it's so prevalent. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like, if you don't see that, like, I want to know where you're going because I want to
Mm-hmm.
know what you're hearing.
Right.
And it's not all churches, because we're constantly seeing, not just churches, like we're seeing tons of
Mm-hmm.
faith practices, people from different faith practices that are saying, hey, this isn't okay. This isn't, I don't even want to use the word biblical. Get like triggered. This does not represent, the faith leader, like the faith belief that I have.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But, and so we are seeing something co-opted that has nothing to do with that, has everything to do with power and control.
Right.
And it's at the
Right.
highest levels.
Right. Right. Right.
Right.
Right. And so, okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me when I think about why this is showing up more in the therapy space, because it is a broader conversation amongst the nation, the world, because of how Christian nationalism is being presented and being presented as Christian. And yeah, it's exactly what you said too. And this is something I talk with friends about that grew up in the evangelical space like I did, but are questioning, those ideals, because we're saying to ourselves, well, our moms and dads and pastors told us to love everybody like Jesus loved everybody, but that's not being represented here. And so we're trying to walk that out to love everybody like Jesus did, and they're telling us we're wrong, right? Like, so it's such a discrepancy, and yeah, that's absolutely what people are struggling with. And when we think about people that are not in faith spaces, friends of mine that aren't in faith spaces or don't identify as Christians, they're saying to me, I don't understand, right? Like, why is this political climate being called Christianity? It doesn't make any sense. And so, to your point, the people outside of faith spaces, people inside faith spaces, everybody is talking about it because of what it looks like, what it's being presented as is not actually what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I saw something from the Department of, Defense. I'll say it that way, Department of Defense. And there's like this promo, and he's saying, our Father in heaven, he's doing the Lord's Prayer. And it's planes dropping bombs and military, it's all militarized. And I'm like, okay, can you show me where that
Yeah, I'm struggling here to see.
I'm like very, very much so. Yeah. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
And so it's just recognizing. So I think, we've seen words like deconstruction or reconstruction or sorting through, all that different language. I had personally kind of sorted through some different things in 2018 and 2019. So before, COVID hit and all that kind of stuff, where we also saw a greater degree of, I think, people talking about it more, because I don't really remember prior to 2019, 2020, ever seeing any kind of language around. I'd seen something around religious harm.
Sure.
Like Diane Langberg was talking about it, that kind of thing. But she had been talking about, some different concepts. But as far as really seeing it and actually hearing the language, I didn't really notice it until like 2020, 2021-ish.
Yeah.
And so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of people from, I don't know, from my perspective, even people from the evangelical space, I mean, we're speaking from that experience because that's where we came from. Seeing leaders in those evangelical spaces speak out against it. I mean, I think that's some of those things that helped me not only to feel validated, but to pay attention, because maybe these are people that I was listening to in the beginning and they're like, oh no, this is not okay. Like, this is not what we're doing here. And to hear that they were speaking out about it and getting so much backlash, right? Yeah. They're still speaking about, I'm going to walk out my faith in loving everybody like Jesus asked us to. And now they're being canceled from Christian spaces. Yeah. It makes no sense, Yeah, it's so hard to reckon that.
Yeah. Well,
right.
golly, we could get in so many conversations, because what we see, has happened to men, right? So like in the age of girl power, and I'm very much girl power. I've got 4 girls, but I also have a son. And so it's
Yeah.
really, it really is, one of those things where we did leave, a generation behind in regards to like, I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying to some degrees, there was like this questioning of like, well, who are they? What's their role? If it's not, if we're leaving patriarchy, right? So if
Right.
we're leaving this thing where it's like male dominated, and that is all very, very real. That this male dominated society, and it's been kind of interesting just to see all the different things flesh out from, we homeschooled for 20 years. So I remember when I first started homeschooling, because I was in a church where like, if you have children, you're called to be at home. Like that's was my initial, I came to faith in my 20s. And so, it was like, oh, well, if he's giving you these children, then you're called to be a homemaker and a wife. And I didn't have a spouse that espoused that. I had me. Right.
Yeah.
So like, he wasn't a believer. So it wasn't something per se that he was putting on me. It was the culture that I was in, and what was being expressed as like, what is the right thing to be doing. Right. So it goes from having freedom in this relationship with I'll say Jesus, freedom in this faith component, to then now I have law of the things that I'm supposed to be doing and measuring up to, and all the different things.
Right.
So having someone who was a very much and has always been a co-equal partner, the way that people would describe that to me, oh, well, they're just passive. And so then there'd be a whole sermon on like, if you're a passive husband, right? And the demise that can bring to your family, or how harmful that can be if I'm just a strong person. Like I've fought through a lot of different things. I'm a fighter. Like I think I'm an Enneagram 2 wing 1 or 1 wing 2. Like it never knows what it wants to do with me, but it's always in that 1-2, space. And very justice oriented and very empathetic.
Yeah. Right.
And so it just flips on whatever my mood is. But yeah. And so, the language that he heard from the church, because he would go just to go, the language that he would hear was that he wasn't doing enough. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't, that was what was kind of like, well, he likes to sit down and drink a beer and watch football on Sunday, and then you have a pastor talking about, well, you can record it. Well, my husband's response was, well, we don't have a Roku. I don't know what it was at the time, like a DVR or whatever. Yeah. So actually, I can't record the Second Cowboys.
Right. Yes. Oh my. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, going back to like making people question who they are, and if a man is more passive and a woman is more assertive, like that on some levels wrong, and that and that's absurd. No,
I mean, it's beautiful now to know that, but like we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago when I first came to faith. We were in like an evangelical space. And so like someone gave me some guy talking about dinosaurs and like how he's never had beer, I think it was Ken Ham or whatever. Right. So like, I will say we had found a church that was evangelical, but very fundamental and very patriarchal. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a framework. I wasn't raised in the church.
Right.
And so I didn't have a framework. And what I think, that's why I was saying, I think people with a trauma history are people who weren't raised in this. And I think there's a couple different dynamics that you can flesh out, but they don't know the difference. Right. Because this, whatever this thing that they're dealing with, if it's maybe a mental health component or making sense of some of the different things that they've navigated through, well, then they've now been forgiven for their choices in it. Right. And so then there's a fidelity to that.
Yeah. Right.
And so you want to protect it. And you protect it at the expense of yourself. Right. Because that's what so often happens in those spaces is it's the language when I came to faith was like, the last will be first and the first will be last. Right. It's an upside down economy, self, like lose yourself in, this faith. All of those different things. And that is not the language I hear at all now, you know. And I'm not saying that I think that in and of itself is not healthy, right? Just being a therapist, right? Like people actually do need to have a self-identity and need to be rooted in who they are as a person, and need to be able, right? Because then you have boundaries. You don't have like some mom volunteering for whatever.
Right. Well, and nobody's one thing. Like you can be a Christian if that's what we're talking about, and also all these other things. It doesn't mean that that's all who you are. That's not your only identity.
Yeah. I remember saying, well, I was having a conversation with a friend, and them saying to me, hey, you can be Christian and not be a Republican, have an army.
Right. Oh my gosh, that blew my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can also be Christian and not have a D by your name. And you can be, you get where I'm going with this. Like,
Right.
Generally, when you kind of look at that spectrum, and I do like politics because I wanted to be a lawyer in the 90s. And so I love policy. So there's value in how policy impacts people.
Yeah.
And so all of these different shifts that we're seeing, it's not something new. I think it's just more out there, like it's more, and I think that has come, like, think about what happened during Me Too and all, like, Mary DeMuth wrote a book, and she started the tagline Church Too. And then Rachel Denhollander, like, there were people who started talking about the abuses that are occurring in church spaces.
Yeah.
And that was, that was birthed out of the Me Too movement, and then now what we're seeing, right? Like this desire for power and control, it's not just to have the power and have the control, it's asserting it over someone else, right? So there's a dominance in that's occurring.
Yeah.
And we see that in abusive structures, whether it's in the church, whether it's in politics, it doesn't matter.
Right. And in the church structure, where what we're seeing a lot is people protecting the institution and not looking after the people. And that's where it becomes super problematic. I mean, going back to what you were saying, calling it a sin rather than calling it abuse and illegal, right? Like it was a sin. It was, it's illegal. It's abuse. You have broken the law. Like it's not quote unquote just a sin. You've broken the law, and that's not okay. But they're protecting the institution rather than the people. And going back to, when you think about what we were taught in the evangelical spaces, that's not what we were taught. And so that's why, on this other side, people are questioning that. Like, what are they doing over there? Like, this is not line up. What they say and what they're doing do not match.
Yeah. Well, we were always taught we would be the ones standing up, right? So as someone who homeschooled for 20 years, I also taught government and history to high school students. So we weren't just at our house. And so it was this idea, right? Think about martyr talk and all that kind of stuff that we heard.
Right. Yeah.
Right, in and around raising kids. And so I sit there and I look back at like the history that I would teach and how I would always have this idea, like we would be the ones standing up. We would be the ones saying, this isn't okay.
Right. Yeah. And fighting for justice. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then somehow fighting for justice has gotten, a bad name, like to stand up for someone else because this isn't okay.
Yeah.
Because what you hear on the other side of that, right, is the justification for why it was okay that it's happening to them. So if you look at the immigration component, well, they shouldn't be here anyways. Really? Because like we literally I sent my kids to Guatemala and Ecuador every summer. So that they would know that we are a safe place. Like, I don't understand what's happening, and also too, like, let's reform that policy. Where's the wherewithal if you don't, where's the wherewithal to reform the policy and actually make it an effective policy?
Right. Yeah. So that what we're saying, what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't want someone claiming asylum, don't have the asylum laws. Like, rework it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, to me, that I know it's a very complex issue. I also took a lot of classes in and around immigration policy, but there's some parts of it that aren't hard. If someone's hurt or harmed, so like if someone's sexually assaulted along the way, like on U.S. soil, they can claim a different type of visa, right? Or if they have a U.S. citizen, a spouse who's a U.S. citizen, and that U.S. citizen is violating them, harming them, abusing them, assaulting them, committing acts of violence, then they have a different pathway to a different type of status.
Right. Right.
So, very complex, but
yeah.
I don't mean to be all over the place.
No. This is good. Well, because it goes back to the humanity issue, and I think I mean that's where I'm coming from with a lot of this stuff. Is if we're going to practice what we preach, right? Like, why can't we see humans for humans and it be a humanity issue? But that that's a lot of the argument. This is very much true for me, and not true for everybody. But I know people that have been through harm in faith spaces that their faith is still really important to them, and they want to maintain that. So how do you do that? Because I know that can feel like conflict a lot of times. So what's your recommendation?
So I start off with your faith is yours. And it really is that simple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the way we see faith. I don't mean to I taught apologetics also for 20 years. So
this is why you're our girl to be telling us all this stuff. You're so knowledgeable.
Like, in all the things. Like when I say I'm interested in something, I'm in it. So even in faith traditions, right? Like the difference between a Methodist and a Presbyterian and Episcopalian and whatever, Baptist, blah, blah, blah. But you are going to have different tenets of the faith, right? That you're going to hold with a closed fist, potentially, maybe. And then you're going to have these, and this is just from a Christian perspective, then you're going to have these other things that you hold loosely. So when I say your faith is yours, your faith is yours. What are the things that are still true for you?
Yeah.
That you can hold with a certain posture, and what are the things that you can no longer hold?
Yeah.
So like for me, coming out of Reformed Baptist faith perspective, there was this idea of like, there was a chosen and an elect, and those were the only ones. Okay. Well, that didn't measure up after navigating some of the spiritual abuse that, myself and my family navigated. And so after navigating those waters, because it didn't hold up the perspective and the truth that I'm very much like rooted in, is the table's long and wide, and whoever wants to have a seat with me can have a seat with me. Come on. Like the more the merrier. I don't think Jesus is up there being like, no, you're out.
Right.
Like,
and neither should we.
Yeah.
Neither should we.
And neither
right?
should we. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then that goes into like distinguishing between authority and truth.
Right.
My mind was blown the first time I sat through. We weren't in church for like 5 years, and then I went to this little it's like a Bible study, but it wasn't. And it was in a different faith tradition, and he was talking about how they were about like the female pastor, she's going to give it from a womanist view. So that's her view when she teaches. And then he's going to give it when he teaches on the weeks that he teaches, he's doing it from this other perspective. And it wasn't biblical. Like he was not throwing the biblical word around.
Yeah.
It was like, so I should have totally paid attention to the words that he said, but I didn't, because I was like, so just like, whoa, womanist.
Right. Surprised like, that they would even present it that way. Mind. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also too, this is kind of what happens, right? When you have to go to seminary and get a master's of divinity, and you're, because in the state of Texas, I'm an ordained minister. Have I ever gone to seminary? No. But did I have someone who was a pastor ordain me at some point in time? Yeah. So, right, we see that in a lot of different church spaces too, where like, oh, we think you're called, so we've ordained you. And that's how it operates in Texas. And so I think there's a real ignorance in regards to things, is why I'm pointing that out. You do not want me giving you all the things in church history. It's just, you don't. but to hear someone talk about this womanist view, and that if they had a Black female pastor up there, then she would provide us with a feminist view. She's able to encompass both of those things.
Yeah.
And so it was very fascinating to me, and to where I was like, oh, because out of the tradition that I came, it was like the literal word of God that you do not question.
Right.
And so having someone say, look for the voices of the marginalized, look for the voices you do not hear. Oh, okay. And when I started doing that, I was like, oh, well, this is really like disruptive, like it's not, you're not reading it as a history. Like, depending on what your faith background is, some people literally read it as like a history.
Right.
And then like what we're seeing, what I think we're seeing, an aspect that we're seeing in Christian nationalism is like this idea of the theocracy, right? And so it is basically, hey, Israel already had their moment, but their moment is gone. And so now it's the nation of America is the new Israel, which is mind-blowing, because church history has never taught that.
Right.
Like, or what we see in the fidelity of the scriptures, that it's never been taught like, hey, we're the new Israel. But there are people who do ascribe to that.
Of course.
Not trying to step on toes. I'm just saying, guess what, everybody? There are different perspectives in regards to the scripture. And that doesn't mean anyone is more or less, faithful.
Right. And so, I think the thing that you're saying is, I think that's super helpful for anybody, no matter where you're at in the faith space, is you can still hold on to those things that feel true to you, and let go of those things that don't. And again, going back to, like, you're not just one thing, and you change, right? Like, I mean, I am so different as a 40-year-old woman than I am when I was 20, because I've experienced things. I've talked to people. That has shaped me and changed me. And for the better, I think, because I see things differently, because I've experienced things differently. I've heard other people's experiences differently. So if I didn't choose to let go of some of those old beliefs and hold on to these same ones so tightly, I think I would be much more confused, honestly, if I didn't give myself permission to do that.
Yeah. Well, and also that curiosity, right? Like, we talk about curiosity all the time,
right?
In our office spaces. And so, being curious about that change component. What am I afraid of in regards to changing my belief on this, or my belief being challenged on this? Right? Whatever that component, even if you don't have per se as a faith component, you still have a component.
Right.
And so what does it look like, for this to be what's challenging, to me in this?
Yeah.
Kind of being curious, like having a posture of curiosity towards yourself. And I'm with you. I do not want to be 20-year-old Christi who's like popping in Ken Ham DVDs about the dinosaurs and how he's never drank alcohol, just so that my husband would hear it when he walked through the room and be like, oh, I should, my word. We, in my family, we joke all the time, like, I am your rule follower. And make a really good rule follower. And so that's what was so difficult when we navigated some of the spaces we navigated, is because I felt like I was breaking a rule.
Breaking the rules. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so therefore, like, that's bad.
Right.
When in reality, no, because my fidelity isn't to this institution. It's to what my faith belief is and what my faith practice asks of me.
Yeah, that's good. Well, so speak on the healing process of somebody that's been through harm. What would be like your recommendation for like step one? What should they do? What can they do?
Well, I would start off with saying safe support. And so I do see that we're beginning to see some different things pop up as far as like support groups and different things like that. I would even potentially start in like a therapeutic setting, because our role is never, I have people from all kinds of backgrounds. And so my role is not to tear down or
Right.
do anything in their faith practice or in their belief system, right? Also, too, I wrote something down when you had said that healing and faith are not mutually exclusive. And
good.
so you can face the truth, even painful truth, and it can still be consistent with your faith.
Yeah.
And also, by acknowledging abuse and seeking healing, it isn't a failure of your faith.
Right.
And so it's, honoring whatever your faith practice is, and that image in yourself, right? So like I have a faith practice that like, he gets imprinted on me, right? So like there's aspects of his character and his nature that are imprinted on me. So it's, okay, I want to honor that about myself because I love that about myself, but he isn't threatened by your healing process, So there was a time, we navigated a situation, our family ended up leaving the church entirely. And so initially it was, I'm going to walk away from it entirely because, because of the repercussions that came from like people who you thought knew you over a big, long course of time. And then they're texting you basically saying you're in sin and all the things. Right. So the main people don't even have to do the work because they've got their people that will do the work for them. Yeah. And the way I even look at that, I'm not trying to be vague, but the way I look at that period of time is like you have people who can only stand on the shallow with you when you come forward and bring forth like a, hey, this isn't okay, do better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you have people who can kind of get in the shallow waters, and you have very few people who can tread water with you in the deep. And then there's going to be people on the other side. And so in navigating what we had navigated, it was a sexual abuse of a child by a pastor. And so I remember saying, to someone like, nobody brings you lasagna for this. Right. Yeah. Let alone, that. Well, we had a lesbian couple from our swim team. So I had coached their kids, and she brought a lasagna. And I thought, that's so crazy to me. Wow. Like this love that I'm receiving from a completely different perspective of like, hey, this shouldn't have happened. Was just so beautiful. Like that's when my table got really wide because I was like, oh, I thought you weren't supposed to care about this or whatever. Like all the language we hear about all the things. So going back to, what you were talking about is that healing and that faith doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Right. So I did a lot of healing, and at times thought, I'm just going to walk away from this at the moment because I can't. Like it was too triggering. Yeah. And then as the healing process continued, I was like, what is still true for me? So it was just kind of sorting out what was still true for me. And then I'm still sorting out. So like, there's not an arrival, by the way, because healing isn't linear. Right? Exactly. So right. There are things that I still kind of go, I don't know about that. And
But going back to what you said, be curious, right? Why, what's coming up for you? Just notice those things. Yeah.
And so, before deconstruction was a word, I always I'm just kind of sorting out. Because I knew coming to faith as an adult, that looked different than me being brought up in it, immersed in it, right? And so for me as an adult, that was an adult decision. But then I really wrestled with the aspects of like my friends, my lesbian friends who are being told they can't get married. And, this is back in the, the aughts, right? Or just kind of wrestling through going, I don't understand why this is a thing. And I'm not trying to make it about them, just trying to give a relevant
right. No, it makes example. A lot of sense. Yeah.
And then also too, recognizing, I think in Jesus land, I think we have this idea of like everybody is this. Right. So like we vote a certain way, we act a certain way, we do a certain thing. And there is no flexibility in who our identity is as people. And so the thing that I've discovered is my friends are more than one little thing. I am more than a mom. I am more than a therapist. I am more than a survivor. I am more than all these different things. There are a million different things that make up who I am.
Right.
Right. And so how do I honor myself and honor others in the process?
That's really good. Yeah. That's really, really good. Yeah. That flexibility piece, it goes against the abuse and the manipulation, right? Because if we're just one thing and we just vote one way and we just, right, like that's the control. We're playing into the control right there. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have no autonomy in that or agency. And that's the biggest thing that I see for people who come out is like, then what do you do with the agency when you're doing when you're faced, like, think about when you've worked with people and like they've been in this oppressive system, whatever it is, right? But like they've been in this aspect of abuse or harm or whatever it is for so long. And then like, what do you do with the freedom of that not happening? I don't know how to be an act without this thing.
Right.
And so then that can feel really scary where people end up stepping back into spaces, they may not want to step back in. I mean, I remember us leaving the church and then like a weekend or two later going to a new church that a family member went to and thinking like I would be okay to be in that space.
Yeah.
And then realizing like, I'm not okay to be in this
No,
space.
I'm not okay. Right.
Yeah. This is not happening. And then completely stepping back and, 2020 was a lot of things, but for me, it was a space and time where I didn't have that pressure to go anywhere or find anywhere different.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they were closed.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think it's good for people to hear, like, again, two conflicting things or two things that you think are conflicting can hold space in the same person. And just to be curious and ask yourself those questions and notice when things come up. Like you said, I thought I'd be okay just going to a different church. Nope, not okay. Okay, then that's all right too. Just, take a step back, take care of yourself. That's okay. Yeah.
Well, and in most families, it's also recognizing everybody is navigating some sort of sorting, deconstructing, walking towards something different.
Yeah.
Everybody has their individual walk. I don't care if they're a kid. All of my kids did something, where they kind of navigated because that was all they had ever known.
Of course. Oh,
and so it impacted them differently in a way where I lacked understanding, because I wasn't raised in and around it and wasn't at youth group or all the things all the time, all the events.
Sure. Was there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover? I feel like we covered a lot.
I enjoy talking to I'm like,
I do too. Oh my girl, we could have made this 3 hours. Yes, we have. Okay, I want to ask you real quick. What do you do to take care of yourself well? When we're talking about self-care.
So I love to hike. You can't really hike in DFW, although there's some spaces.
Yeah.
But love to hike. Soccer games, we had talked about like our mutual love for our kids' sports. Yes. So I love to. I am the mom that I'm like, oh, I will get you to the thing. We will, because it's like my little place of I can just be like, oh, this is fun.
Yes.
So that I read a ton. I probably read too much.
No such thing.
Read a lot. Family.
Are you reading anything? What are you reading right now? Is anything good?
So I just finished The Cult of Trump by Stephen Hassan. Yeah.
Okay.
Fascinating book. He's a cult expert. Fascinating book.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
The other one that I just finished reading was We're All Guilty Here. And so that's just I'm trying to think I can't remember who wrote it, but
we'll put it in the show notes. Perfect.
It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A good healing book while I'm thinking about real quick. Ann Miller has a book, Healing Together.
Okay.
And so, and she came out of evangelical spaces also, and church abuse spaces. Anything by Diane Langberg, anything by Wade Muller.
Yeah.
Those are all going to be healthy or helpful resources, but also to go outside of that.
Yeah.
Religious Trauma Institute, or just some other people who are doing the work in and around, so that you can develop a language around it.
Exactly. Yes.
So that, because
sure.
if you don't have language, you can't identify. You just
Right.
have what it feels like and
feels
and
like.
it's, but without,
Yeah. And that's hard to sort out if you don't have words. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it makes a big difference.
Yes. Yeah. I know you gave a really great list of resources. So we'll be sure to include that for people to read and listen to and all the things. But if anybody like just wants, maybe they're interested in working with you or want to find you, where can they find you? Yeah.
Anyone who's navigated sexual abuse or sexual harm of any kind, if you're 18 or older, then you can go through Louder Than Silence. That's a great nonprofit. We do a peer-to-peer support group, so it's peer-led, so it's not therapy, but eventually, after completing the 12-week cohort, you go on the list for reimbursed EMDR.
Wow. So, that's awesome.
So
that's really
a
awesome.
Beautiful program. So their idea is a continuum of care, not in the immediate aftermath of sexual violence.
Okay.
And then
perfect.
In religious trauma through Sacred Wilderness or Bodies Behind the Bus.
Yes. They're
doing a great job of talking about story, giving language, having different experts on.
Yeah. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. So, gosh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. No, this is a great conversation. I'll just have to bring you back and we'll just talk some more.
I would love that. I would. I'm in a very not purple district where there's not a lot of people you can talk about.
You can talk to.
I
get that. I get that. Yeah, for sure.